Hello, magical souls. I am Ivy, the occultist, and today we're going to be talking about plant spirits and tree spirits. We're going to talk about what they are, potentially. We're going to give a definition to that, and also how to get started working with them. So let's begin. It is a dark and gloomy day in the Pacific Northwest right now, so I thought it was a perfect day to get my camera out, talk about spirituality and spirits. Of course, that's my favorite topic to talk about, but this is going to be a kind of structured, loosely structured video. I'm really just gonna kind of word vomit all my thoughts and feelings about how to get started working with plant spirits and what they are, etc. So this one won't be as structured as my other videos because this is such a huge topic that really deserves a super deep dive, like reading lots of books about it. But I wanted to share my own personal perspective on it, maybe help some beginners out there that have never worked with plant spirits before. So when we talk about plant spirits and tree spirits, if you are an animist like me, you might believe that there is some sort of a spirit in everything on this earth. Every plant, every tree, even rocks. I mean, some items may have lower frequencies than others, and some are more high vibrational, higher frequencies, but you might believe that there is a spirit in everything, not just in human beings. And when I say spirit, I want to clarify that energy and spirit to me are the same thing. I know that some people prescribe only to the energy model and say that they only believe in energy. I know some people say that they only believe in spirit. For me, they are one and the same. They are the same thing, just looking at it from different perspectives. So I'm probably going to use energy and spirit together in this video. Just know that I'm talking about the same thing here, depending on, or it doesn't matter which word I use. But again, back to being an animist. If you are an animist, then you might believe that there is this spirit or this energy that resides within plants and trees, and you can use that energy in your spells and rituals. You can develop relationships with these plants, and you can become an ally to the plant. That ally or that plant becomes an ally to you, and in my opinion, it helps a lot more with healing. You can use it medicinally, but you can also just use it in your spells and rituals as just a regular correspondence. But I feel that developing a relationship with that plant and with that tree makes it much more powerful when you are, let's say, smoke cleansing your home with a bundle of herbs. If you've already connected to that spirit of that plant, whatever dried plant it is that you are smoke cleansing your home with, in my personal experience, it is a lot more effective, it is a lot more powerful, and this is, like I said, a total personal experience vlog that we're talking about right now. But I encourage you to try working with plant spirits and tree spirits and see how it affects your magical practice. I find that a lot of people, once they start becoming allies to the ingredients that they're using in their spells and rituals, they find that their spells and rituals are a lot more effective. So let's talk about how to get started working with plant spirits. I want to talk briefly about some of the science behind plants and the potential for plant spirits or energy within a plant that we can tap into. There have been studies done on plants where they will have two plants, plant A and plant B, and they will put them in the same growing conditions. They will put them under the same amount of light, the same water, same humidity, etc. But plant A, they will talk negatively to. They will scream at it, they will give it bad energy, they will do nothing different other than the negative energy that they are pushing onto plant A. And on plant B, they will talk kindly to it, they will sing to it, they will essentially give it good positive energy. And what they found with these plants, the study has been done a couple times, it's really, really interesting, I really encourage you to look further into this, is that plant A, the one that they talked negatively to, actually had a harder time developing and didn't flourish as well as plant B. Even though they had the same amount of light, they had the same amount of water, humidity, etc., the only difference was the bad vibes and the good vibes that those humans gave off to the plants. So clearly, there is a clear relationship here between humans and plants, where we can affect the plant life just by giving it bad energy or giving it good energy and not doing anything else. And so there is this theory that plants can also affect us with their energy without us having to ingest it, without us having to really interact with it other than sitting next to it and literally letting the energies kind of mingle together and see seep into us. So there is that component to it. There's also another concept called earthing. And if you're not familiar, there's actually there's a book called Earthing. I read it a long time ago. Honestly, I can't remember who wrote it. But in this book called Earthing, and also there's a lot of research online that you can find about this as well, it is an incredible practice. Earthing is essentially going out in your bare feet. I'm really going to water it down here, but going out and touching the earth with your bare feet. And there is this exchange of free electrons that happens between the earth and you. And there have actually been some research to show that there is medicinal benefit from this. So even if you go outside for 5-10 minutes, it doesn't even have to be anything longer than that. The studies show that a person may receive benefits such as reducing inflammation, reducing anxiety, depression, or recalibrating the nervous system as a whole. There is also some incredible immune boosting effects. It affects our immune system, our blood and vitality, etc. So side note, highly recommend just earthing every now and then, going out in your bare feet and sticking your feet in the soil for about 5 to 10 minutes, because it really does kind of help recalibrate everything in your body. And I know I'm not doing this justice right now. Just go read the book or go research online about it, because earthing is incredible. But there is some science to back up that there is an exchange happening between the earth and us. Even just by sticking our feet on the soil, this free electron exchange is really wonderfully recalibrating to our body. So there is some science here to say that there is a relationship between us and the earth, and there is a relationship between us and plant life, or trees. Trees obviously fall under the category of plant life, but there is this exchange happening that we can't physically see with our eyes, but there is clearly something going on here that we need to research a little bit further. So that's kind of what we know as far as the science goes. And I wanted to dive into this a little bit further, because when we're talking about plant spirits and tree spirits, that idea can become really abstract. And a lot of people are like, what is a plant spirit? What even is that? So I just want to let you know there is some science to back it up, but also you really just got to go with your intuition on this one. Try it out for yourself and see if you get results in your magical practice. If you are a skeptical person like I used to be very skeptical. When somebody told me about plant spirits, I was like, what? And I was so closed off to it. And I'm actually kind of ashamed to say that now, because it completely changed my magical practice. Just do it. Just try. Just go and have a relationship, build a relationship with a specific plant. Let it become your ally, become an ally to that plant, and then see how that changes your magical practice. So now we are going to dive into all the ways that you can start working with plant spirits and tree spirits. Okay, I wrote some notes here just so I wouldn't forget. I took some time to write out all the different ways that I personally work with plant spirits. Just know that this is not, like I've mentioned in my other videos, this is not an exhaustive list. It is not a whole, complete, total guide to how to work with plant spirits, because there's like a million different ways for you to do that. But this is just a list to help you get started, and also things that I personally have found successful over the years. So one of the ways that I would recommend starting with plant spirits and tree spirits is getting to know the vegetation, the plant life in your area. It gives you a great opportunity to go outside and literally connect with the plants around you. And the reason why this is so important is because you also want to connect with the land that you are currently occupying as well. That's my own personal perspective on that, of course, but it's also nice to be around these plants as they're growing in the ground. The closer that you can get to the original source, the better. You can use dried leaves of a plant, you can use a picture of a plant even, but sitting next to the real plant growing in the ground, there is absolutely no substitute for that. So I highly recommend going outside, getting to know your local plants. Obviously, if you live in the desert, you're not going to find very many ferns, I'm assuming, and like vice versa. Here in the Pacific Northwest, I'm not going to find many cacti. Like, that's just, it doesn't grow here. So you got to work with what you've got sometimes, and it's free, okay? We don't need to be spending lots and lots of money on plants or herbs. If you want to, that's totally fine. But in getting started, I highly recommend starting with your local plants. Do some quick research on what is poisonous and what is not. That way you are not building a relationship with something that is potentially poisonous that you don't know how to work with yet safely, and you just don't want to get yourself into that situation. So make sure you're staying away from the poisonous plants, of course. Do a little bit of research. I would recommend not doing too much research though. And the reason for this is because it's good to exercise your intuition first before you do a deep dive on the internet or through books, etc., getting to know that plant. So when I pick a plant that I want to work with, and usually I will work with a plant, just one plant, for an entire week or even an entire month. Pick just one single plant that you would like to work with in your area and then spend so much time with it. Seriously. And we're going to talk about all the different ways that you can spend time with it. But pick a plant, make sure that you are dedicating at least a week, I would say, at the minimum. That's my own personal preference on that, with just one plant. Because if you're trying to learn too many plants at one time, it's really hard to get to know that spirit. It's like getting to know a new friend, you know? It's so much easier if you can have one-on-one time with that new friend than going out to a party with 10 people and trying to get to know all 10 people at once. It's way better to just have that one-on-one time with your new friend before you move on to getting to know the next person. So pick one in your area, but like I said beforehand, don't do a deep dive into what it means, because you want to give yourself the opportunity to understand that plant spirit and what it represents to you personally without the input of the external world. So an example of this is one of the first plants that I really connected to is dandelion. There are a lot of dandelions in my area. That is a native plant that everybody considers a weed over here because it grows like crazy. So with dandelions, I spent a lot of time getting to know that plant myself with my own meditations and my own methods of getting to know it before I did research online of all the metaphysical properties dandelion has. I made sure, obviously, that dandelions are not poisonous, of course, and how to properly identify dandelion. So I'm not, you know, working with something that I thought was dandelion, but really it's a poisonous whatever. So I did some preemptive research to make sure that I had the right plant. But as far as metaphysical properties go, I didn't even look at those until after I had already spent time with dandelion to see how it personally affects my own body. So that is my first tip, is that getting to know the local plants in your area so you can connect with the land as well, and also not doing so much research so you could really allow your own intuition to come in and really figure out how you personally work with that plant. Once you have chosen the plant that you want to work with and you want to become allies to that plant, I want you to sit next to that plant and literally have a conversation. I want you to ask that plant, may I be your ally? May I develop a relationship with you? Or you can simply state, I would love to develop a relationship with you. It may sound totally crazy to be sitting there talking out loud to a plant, but as we've seen in previous studies, that positive energy, that positive talking, you could even sing to the plants even, really does develop a positive relationship with that plant. And it also opens the door in your own psyche, just saying literally out loud, I would like to develop a relationship with you. You are implanting that into your own psyche as well of, hey, we're going to start developing this relationship with dandelion or whatever plant it is that you decide to work with. So what you're going to do, now that you've chosen the plant that you want to work with and you are sitting down next to that plant ready to connect with it, you have talked to it a little bit, expressed interest, said that, hey, I would like to develop a relationship with you. I would like to become your ally. I want you to study its texture, its color, its growing habits. I actually have a little dandelion here that I picked from my backyard. But what you're going to want to do is look and see, is it spiky? Is it soft? The dandelion obviously is yellow, so what does that color represent? And you're going to be looking, like I said, about the growing conditions. Dandelion is very hardy. It is very resilient and it will grow literally anywhere. So it's tough. It's a really tough plant. And it's also yellow, which relates to the solar plexus. It relates to your power, your will, vitality, etc. So this is a great plant to use potentially in creativity, potentially for physical health and stamina, or increasing your power. And upon doing more research on dandelion, it's actually really good for your blood and your heart as well, which is very much related to stamina and health, you know, all the physical endurance and vitality and power, etc. The wind is blowing like crazy right now because it is so stormy outside, so don't worry, there's not extra spirits in here. Well, maybe actually, maybe there are extra spirits in here, who knows. But that's what that is. So study everything about this plant first before you do your research, like I mentioned beforehand, and see what visually comes through for you first. You will eventually do a meditation with plant life, or whatever plant it is that you choose to work with, but start with the visuals and see, okay, if something's spiky, what does that represent to you? Or if something's really soft, what kind of energy does that represent? You know, so you're going to go through all these different things, and noticing where it grows, in what type of soil. Is it a full sun plant? Does it seem to be a shady plant? So does it like the light or does it like the darkness? That can also indicate the type of energy that this plant would represent. So definitely start with the physical things, the things that you see on the outside first, before we start diving deeper to the inside. Next, you are going to want to do a meditation with your plant or tree. So I highly recommend sitting next to that plant. Again, it's better if you can get it in its native environment, and when it's growing in the ground, sitting outside with it obviously is the most ideal situation. But if you're wanting to connect with a non-native plant that does not grow in your area, you can also just do this with the dried version if you buy it at the grocery store or online, etc. And you're just working with the dried leaves. Still, you can still do the same thing. It might not be as potent and as easy to connect with that plant spirit, but it definitely can be done. So you're going to want to do a meditation, and there are a lot of meditations available on YouTube. I was thinking about making a plant spirit meditation. It's a shamanic journey that you go on to connect to that spirit of the plant, but I think the sound of my voice is weird, so I'm probably not going to do that. So I'm just going to say that there are so many YouTubers that have done exceptional jobs at creating plant life meditation. So if you literally just typed in plant spirit shamanic journey or whatever, I'm sure a million different meditations would pop up for you to do. But I highly recommend sitting down next to that plant and doing a meditation and seeing what comes through, what kind of feelings come through, because you want to get a general sense of, is this plant sedating and grounding? Is it nurturing? Or is it maybe a little bit more stimulating? Is it more high vibration where it's stimulating your third eye or giving you these intellectual ideas or what have you? So really notice where you feel it in your body. Do you feel stimulated or do you feel sedated? And in these shamanic journeys, you actually literally go through this visualization of meeting that plant spirit and talking to that plant spirit. So highly recommend checking that out. With trees specifically, my favorite meditation is when you are sitting down at the base of a tree, and try this with different trees, obviously, because different trees, different species of trees will have different energetic effects on your body. And this is also a great way to develop your intuition and your energy sensing. So definitely give this a try. But you're going to sit at the base of a tree and meditate. Simply meditate. Any type of meditation that works for you. My favorite is, it's this meditation, it's like a shamanic journey where you go essentially inside the tree. You imagine yourself, so you're closing your eyes and you do a visualization of walking around the backside of the tree and seeing a little door. And so you open the door and you go inside and you look at the inside of the tree and all the little knickknacks maybe, or what type of room that is inside the tree, and really try to paint a picture. This again does involve visualization. So if you struggle with visualization, this is not going to be the technique for you, and that's okay. But that's my personal favorite, is doing a visualization of the inside of the tree. And there's so many different ones that you can do, but I highly recommend meditating with different trees to see what kind of energies come through for you in your meditations. Some other things that you can do to connect with plant spirits and tree spirits would be to sleep with bits of them. I'm not kidding. Literally take a piece of that plant, put it underneath your pillow or put it in a little sachet and see how it affects your dreams. That is another way. If you struggle with meditation, dream work can be really helpful in connecting with those spirits, because obviously you're not meditating, you're sleeping. So that's a wonderful way to do it. If you do decide to take bits of that plant away, like if you're gonna cut off a flower or cut off a stalk or take some leaves, I highly recommend leaving an offering for that plant. Traditionally, in shamanic cultures, tobacco leaves would be used as offerings. Obviously, that is an old school way of doing it. You can leave whatever you feel is right in the moment. So for me, typically, I don't have just tobacco leaves lying around, and honestly, that doesn't feel right to me personally in my practice. So what I will do, depending on what plant I'm working with, I will sit down next to it before I take my cutting. You know, if I want want to take a leaf or a flower or whatever, I will ask it for its blessing. I will wait, and if I feel energetically that that answer is a yes, then I will take some of that cutting from the plant. If I feel like something's off and there's maybe a no as the answer, I will leave that plant alone and I will go somewhere else, do it a different day, etc. But you can also water the plant. You can also give it something nutritious for the soil. You know, if you've got some compost, if you've got some really good compost, you can offer that to the plant, because that compost obviously will break down and give some really rich nutrients to the soil, which is really, really good for the plant. You can also offer it just your good energy and gratitude. I know a lot of people that sing to their plants and literally tell stories to their plants. So if you don't have anything to offer that plant spirit or that tree spirit, sing a song. Seriously, tell a story, sing a song, send it some good energy. That is enough of an offering. But I encourage you to do that because it forces you to take responsibility and to be an ally to that plant. You're not just coming in and taking whatever you want whenever you want. You are taking responsibility for yourself. You are asking for permission from that plant to take that cutting. And that offers you the ability to have a give and take relationship with that plant where you are allies to one another. So with that said, after you've left an offering, if you've chosen to do that, you've gotten a yes answer essentially, you've taken a piece of the plant, you can either sleep with it, you can ingest it, but obviously do your research, make sure it's a plant that you can ingest and that it's very safe for you to do so, but make a tea out of it. You know, there are lots of trees where you can take the pine needles and make teas out of that, and so you can have a little tea tasting ceremony if you want to, and you can try all these different types of trees and see how they taste. Now if you are working with the plant spirit in general, obviously you'd probably want to work with just one at a time to really get the energy or the feel of that plant or tree spirit. But that is another way that you can do it, is by ingesting it and seeing how it works in your body. You can also take those plants and throw it in a ritual bath. You know, if you're going to lay down in some hot water, throw in some leaves or some flowers from the plant that you're trying to connect to, let it seep into your pores, see how it affects you that way. You can even do a little meditation in the bath. So there's so many different ways that you can do it. There were a couple other tips that I wanted to add to this as well. I highly recommend getting a notebook or something to write in, because you are going to want to track your progress with this. It's really, really easy to forget what is what during this process. So when you've picked a plant, you decided, okay, I'm going to work with dandelion for a whole week and we're going to see what happens. Highly recommend that you are actually writing that down and recording all your experiences, what worked, what didn't work. That way you can also use that knowledge the next time you try to work with a plant spirit. So let's say you are meditating next to the plant, but you didn't get anything. It really wasn't working for you. It was kind of a dead energy, so to speak. You've had a mental block there. Write that down in your notebook, and then let's say you really connected to it by ingesting it, or you know, one of the other methods that we talked about. You might find that there are certain methods of connecting to a plant or tree spirit that work better for you specifically, and you can use that knowledge when you decide to connect to your next plant spirit or tree spirit. You can go, okay, meditation didn't really work for me that time. Let's try a different method this time and see if I have an easier time connecting to that plant or tree spirit. So that was my recommendation there. And lastly, I wanted to say, take your time with this. Developing relationships with different plant spirits and tree spirits takes years. It really does. There are thousands and thousands of species of plants and trees available out there to develop relationships with. So allow yourself to be a beginner. It's okay if you only have one plant spirit ally or two plant spirit allies or tree spirit allies, etc. I would encourage you to spend more time making these quality connections and working with one or two plants for a long time before diving into more plants, because you're going to have so much more success with it. It really does take years to develop all these different relationships. So I hope that some of those tips were helpful for you. Definitely let me know in the comments what you thought about all this. If you have some experience with plant spirits or tree spirits and what you would recommend, if there's anything that I may have missed in this video, I would absolutely love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.